Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Corissa.
There we go. And hey, that is a new voice. Everyone out there, I want you to welcome onto the program Corissa. If you have dealt with Computer America behind the scenes, then hey, Corissa should be a familiar voice. But this is going to be her first show that she is here co-hosting with us. And Corissa, I'm really happy that you could be here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. And hey, it's, this is going to be an ongoing thing. So everyone, I hope that you warm up quickly. And if you don't, too bad, because I think she's going to be here for the long haul and it's going to be a lot of fun. So everyone, once again, welcome into the Computer America Show and thank you so much for tuning in. Today on the program, we have a full hour of computer and technology news where we have a ton of different topics, everything from Garmin and how much they had to pay to get out of the hole, this whole thing with TikTok, Microsoft, and of course the president. It's just a huge mess and so many other topics that we're going to get into. But before we do that, of course, want to mention computeramerica.com. That's where you can find everything, including articles, reviews, show notes, podcasts, social media links, anything that we do here on Computer America, you can find at computeramerica.com. While you're there, be sure to follow us on social media. Give us a like, give us a follow, and hey, that will help us immensely, and we certainly appreciate that. We love to hear from you. That is the best way to reach out and get our attention, is to follow us on social media. Now, with that being said, before we get into computer and technology news, I wanted to talk to Corissa just for a bit and, just welcome her onto the show. So everyone, once again, Corissa has been working behind the scenes diligently to get some of the best guests that we have ever had on the show. And, as much fun as I'm sure all of you have listening to just me rattle on for... Craig unfortunately left the show August, about early September 2016. So it's been almost 4 years now without a co-host. It is time. So this, honestly, if we had waited one more month, it would have been like 4 years to the date that Ben had been doing this kind of solo. But I'm happy that we could just skip that and get right to it. Carissa, just to introduce yourself, talk about, I'm trying to introduce you like a guest, and, guests, I kind of say backgrounds and things like that. But how about what qualifies you for the show, as in what gets you excited about technology? This is obviously a computer technology show. You've worked here for a while. You have been immersed in technology, consumer, and whatnot. What excites you about technology in general?
Honestly, it's just the way it's been drifting towards, sci-fi. Honestly, it's you've been watching these movies your whole life, watching the holodecks and the cell phones and hoverboards and all this stuff, and it's finally happening in front of your eyes. So I think it's super cool to just kind of watch how everything evolves. But also I'm super into the way video games are evolving as well, because I've been playing for a super long time, probably since I was about 6 years old. I started with a Super Nintendo, and we always had all kinds of different systems in our house. So I've just been really enjoying watching how that gets better over time as well.
I'm looking forward to video games as well. Just to kind of tease tomorrow's show, of course, Zenfree, which makes a video game, The Last Taxi, and that's going to be all about virtual reality and stuff like that. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you were talking about things like the holodeck. I mean, virtual reality is, I think, as close as we're going to get for quite some time. It's
probably. I know Microsoft was doing a thing for a while. It was, what was that thing called? It was,
they were working on augmented reality and the Microsoft HoloLens.
HoloLens, which I guess is kind of like VR anyway. But yeah, they're kind of drifting into that direction, sort of.
And they have been, that continues to be a job offering or a job training tool, there we go, for a number of companies and enterprise. And who knew that corporate would find a way to turn it into one of the most boring technologies out there, but the technology does continue to evolve. I'm hoping for virtual reality. And by the way, you mentioned video games real quick. I think that you, like many people during the quarantine, I think that when it comes to video games, not like the number one video game that took advantage of coronavirus, if there is an advantage to be had, was Animal Crossing New Horizons. Is that still your game? Because I know that you were playing that for a while. Is that still your game, or have you moved on?
Still my game. I restarted my island and I got all new villagers, and I just botched the whole thing and started over because I wanted a completely different look, and I just didn't have the patience to deal with all that remodeling and stuff. So I just started over. I probably got 200 hours into it, and it's pretty good.
A lightweight, that's okay.
Yeah, lightweight, yeah. Compared to my friend Rachel, who's been playing it since it came out, she's got 800 hours on it or something stupid like that. So she was far more into it than I was. But yeah, I'm still playing it. It's still a good time, and I'm enjoying doing all the, collecting all the items and stuff, because I love just, collecting things in video games and sifting through the boxes and all that stuff. So
well, unfortunately, you are going to have to take an hour out of your day now that I know that you were otherwise working. It's not all games. There's, of course, work here to be done at Computer America, but we're going to take another hour of your time and be our permanent co-host. And I want to once again thank you for agreeing to do this, because, I think that you're going to add a lot. So thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Okay, so there's a little bit of introduction, of course, over the coming weeks, months, years, what have you. All of you will become much more acquainted with Corissa, and hey, we're gonna have to set you up with with your own handle on social media to get you, kind of make sure people can reach you. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. Again, this is a segment for all of you out there that maybe this is your first time. A segment where we cover policy, new products, anything technology news related. We try to keep you up to date. We try to catch you up because, this is the full-time job for us, and we can't imagine having another job and trying to, really catch up. So here we go. Computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. I think we're going to lead with one of the biggest stories of the day, and this has to do with, of course, Microsoft. Microsoft says that it's aiming to close a TikTok deal by September 15th. Before we go any further, I have to admit, my personal experience with TikTok comes at the expense of, I've never really used it. I've seen it pick up traction. I've seen the videos. The videos are so insidious because you can create short form video clips up to I think a minute long. They have many, many, many licensing deals with a lot of the most popular songs, and they are very easy to export onto existing social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, what have you. Sharing the videos are very easy. Making them are very easy, and it really does kind of remind you of the Vine, where it's all it not pictures, it's video set to music, and it can be humorous, it can be trendy, it can be whatever you want. I personally have no real experience in using TikTok, so Corissa, I'm going to ask you, TikTok, has this something you've ever explored yourself?
Absolutely not.
It has that reputation where it's like for I don't want to use the term Zoomers, but it has that reputation that it's like young teens. This is like the 16-year-old kind of thing or the 13-year-old kind of thing, but the growth has been exponential.
It's been crazy, and like I don't follow it, but my friend does, and she's constantly sending me stuff, so I'm like exposed to it anyway. But she tells me that there's actually a lot of like older, like millennial, aged people on there making videos and stuff too. So while it seems kind of like catered towards the younger people, there's also a lot of older people that are just have nothing else better to do that go on there and make all kinds of memes and stuff anyway. So it really is kind of like a large age range.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to transcend just the younger crowd, and more people are using it because I guess sending these video clips, and Chris, you've seen them, and I'm sure many of our audience members have seen them. Some of them can be very funny. They go viral so easily, but even with it having that younger audience, it has been having that growth. It's been number one in the App Store for months and months and months. Even though it came out like 2 or 3 years ago out of China, it is like the most downloaded app on every operating system out there. And I have to say that there's been a problem, and this has, and Chris, I'm not sure if you've been following this one, but TikTok has, of course, ties to China because it came out of China and it was developed by a company called ByteDance, which we're going to talk about the reaction from the Chinese people to the CEO in a moment. But there has been rumors that TikTok would be banned by the current administration because of their privacy, their data sharing with the Chinese government. That has been an undercurrent when it comes to social media and really the amount of data that flows one way or another. I can't say that this has been proven. I mean, this is something that Congress, everyone from law enforcement, congressmen, cybersecurity professionals, so on and so forth, even to the point where current Joe Biden, with his presidential campaign, has advised all of their staff members to delete TikTok off of their phones. It's been a continuous struggle with TikTok to the point where, again, over the weekend, President Trump was going to ban it, but instead, this news today, Microsoft has until September 15th, or about 45 days, to sell to Microsoft. And I have no idea how that came about because obviously Microsoft is not the biggest when it comes to social media. As far as social media and Microsoft go, Corissa, you've been working with the show for long enough, and we used to use Skype all the time for the show. Not so much nowadays, but do you recall when Skype had the massive renovation or kind of redo?
Definitely. But I don't know if, I don't know how related that is,
Well, my point with that was that Microsoft and social media, the closest they had were they were trying to revamp Skype to be a social media platform that, you bring your friends on. They had message boards. You could tag people, things like that.
I remember.
Yeah. And it did not work. It did not work at all. Turns out that Skype was, people were not ready to rebrand Skype as a business application into a social media application. So Microsoft is one of the few tech giants out there that don't have that social media aspect. I mean, even Apple has iMessaging, and that's actually fairly big. And of course, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat, and so on and so forth. So for Microsoft to do this, they're looking to get into another portion of the tech industry and try to capitalize on the massive amount of users. So let's go ahead and talk about or read this article just a little bit for a bit more context, and then we'll talk about this. But they said that if Microsoft can successfully, and by the way, this is coming from Engadget, but if Microsoft can successfully negotiate a deal with ByteDance, the company says it will add world-class security, privacy, and digital safety protections to the TikTok experience. And to be absolutely clear, there's a chance that these discussions may fall apart. That's true for any high-profile acquisition, but this deal in particular is strange since it seems to be coming at the behest of President who has talked of banning TikTok. And Corissa, that seems to be one of the strangest things, is that you have President Trump who is saying sell to Microsoft, sell to an American industry, or be banned from the U.S. market.
So
That is a
have
first.
a conspiracy about that. I don't know if you want to hear it.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it. Conspiracy. Oh, okay.
He wants to buy it because he wants to be the one spying. He wants to take that away from China and let America be the ones who are spying, because everyone in the world uses this, so we can spy on everyone else, just like China's spying on us.
So when it comes to data sharing, this is a topic that comes up often on the show. There's the 3 Eyes. There's a whole bunch of data sharing kind of thing. And for everything that the U.S. accuses China and many other countries when it comes to spying on user data, yeah, Congress in particular has been pushing that any data stored on a U.S. server can fall under a warrant to be searched by U.S. law enforcement. So obviously, if TikTok is now an American-based company and is then stored on American servers, suddenly TikTok users from across the world are going to have their data stored on U.S. servers, which are then able to be subpoenaed or searched under a warrant. And hey, that can leave everything from geolocation to contact lists to messages and pictures and videos. There's a lot that goes into it. So you're not wrong. One thing I will push back a little bit on is this idea that, kind of tying Trump to Microsoft. That's a pretty touchy subject because I think Microsoft, kind of works not at the behest of the U.S. government, but hey, Microsoft and the U.S. government do have to kind of communicate often because Microsoft is such a large entity. So all that being said, I think you're right. It's just strange that this is one of the first times that we've had a completely foreign-based technology, and in this case, a social media experience, kind of have that political mixed with the business pressure to do this. So I'm not a fan, but do you think that TikTok, or would you be surprised if TikTok either went away or this fell apart? Do you expect this to kind of go through or not go through? Just in the limited details that you have, do you expect this to happen?
I mean, I guess it depends on how good the businessmen in China are feeling that day.
You think, and by the way, we have this second article that we're going to do about how the users in China, Corissa, about a week ago, just to add a little bit more context for you and of course the audience out there, for anyone that didn't know, India, the second largest, not economy, the second largest market for smartphones, and TikTok in particular, banned TikTok because there were tensions on the Indian and the Chinese border. And I think it was like 43 or 48 different apps that are developed by the Chinese tech companies were banned from India, and a number of them continue to be banned because they kind of pop up under different names. Corissa, do you have an iPhone or an Android phone, just for reference?
Android.
Okay, Android, so that's what I was hoping for. In the Android marketplace, there's a lot of junk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what India was running into with China, was that some of these apps would be blocked in India, and India has like 800 million smartphone users, and the applications would just pop up immediately with a different name, different logo, and just continue operating as normal. And it's almost like a game of whack-a-mole. TikTok was one of those, and so India has banned it. The U.S., if this deal falls through, they're going to ban it. It's interesting times because it seems like we are really segmenting the internet in a way that we haven't before, and it's across not geography, but across almost like political lines.
Right. Well, if that's the case, I think it's probably just going to fade out of existence if it does go in that direction.
This is, and for everyone else out there, this is one of those situations where we've seen a lot of hostility towards China and their tech scene. I can't really speak to rightfully or not. A lot of it has to do with politics. A lot of it has to do with data, and it's kind of unfortunate from a technology standpoint because you just kind of want good technology to prosper, and you want everyone to have access to all the different toys and gadgets and whatnot. But hey, sometimes technology does cross over into the political, which, Corissa and everyone else out there, this leads me to this next article. Chinese internet users brand ByteDance CEO, which ByteDance, again, being the company that owns TikTok, as a traitor as TikTok seeks U.S. buyer. Right? This is what I was talking about with that idea of the technology is seeing this political divide more than a geographical divide. I don't think I've ever heard that kind of language coming out from China as far as a business deal goes. You know, they're a traitor for selling out to the U.S. Usually it's the other way around.
Right. But the other thing to consider as well, though, I think, is the fact that we are being run by, quote unquote, a businessman. So everything's being treated as business at this point. Like things are, that aren't normally political are now becoming political because they're being treated as a business venture rather than what it should be.
We have seen a lot of pressure from the current administration, and it's been a topic that we've covered in articles that we post onto Computer America. There seems to be more at play here than just the technology. Politics when it comes to U.S., Russia, China, and a lot of its peers goes a lot further, and it almost seems like Huawei, for instance, is one big company. Huawei, and then you have I'm sorry, you have Huawei, and you have ByteDance now, and a number of other Chinese companies that seem to be getting the regulatory stick and just get beat over the head with it over and over again because there is political game to be had. And then, of course, you have the opposite direction where the likes of Google and Microsoft and Amazon are trying to make headway, and Tesla are trying to make headway into China, and then it's almost like it's them or us. And I think that's where we're going to, kind of touch lightly onto this article. We're not really going to go through this one from TechCrunch about the being a traitor for selling out to the US. But everyone, I wanted to leave you with this idea that it's not healthy, but the technology scene in particular is becoming a them versus us. And as much as companies and politics would like you to believe that is the case, I've met a lot of Chinese businessmen, and I've met a lot of Chinese nationals out at conventions like CES and just in my everyday life. And of course, yes, playing video games. They're just regular people, and I don't want to see that continue. That's that them versus us attitude. But it's getting worse, Corissa. It is.
Sad days.
Sad days indeed. Now, speaking of sad days, let's go ahead and jump to a different topic. A lot of different ones that we can talk about here. And one of the most popular ones last week was a popular Twitter hack. I don't know if you use Twitter all that much, Corissa, but anyone out there who followed really anyone big, everyone from presidential hopefuls to celebrities like Beyonce to technologists like Elon Musk, they were all compromised in a very widespread. Yeah, well,
But he's only 17.
Well, yeah, and really that's the thing. It's like who could have done this? We finally have maybe not a face, but we have a name. And I guess this was dug up by the New York Times. Someone has actually been charged with doing that whole kind of thing. And turns out they actually have a history of doing this, where I'm trying to see if I have another article, but I think it's just the one from Engadget here. Yeah, the alleged hacker is, as Corissa just said, 17 years old and has an alleged history where he has stolen Bitcoin before. Yep, that's right. The other people who are working with Bitcoin and promoting it and working with it, they're just teenagers looking to get rich. And unfortunately, this gentleman now is in a lot of trouble. But and really, Carissa, how much of the recent Twitter hack do you recall? Like, do you recall kind of the circumstances, what happened that day? And
a whole lot of it, honestly.
Yeah. So for Carissa's sake and everyone else out there, sometime in the afternoon, one fateful day, it was a Twitter message was sent out from numerous people, and it was so ham-fisted. That's the phrase that I'm really using for this particular case. It was so ham-fisted because they sent out the same message, say, hey, send Bitcoin to this wallet. And they used everyone from Joe Biden, Elon Musk, Beyonce, Jay-Z, people with tens or hundreds of millions of followers. And they say, hey, send money to this wallet. Turns out not a lot of people fell for it. You can say, I'm sorry?
Well, that's good.
Yeah, right. I'm glad that people don't just blindly send money whenever their favorite pop star says something, but all these accounts were compromised at the exact same time, and they were trying to do something that was very, very stupid. Now, it didn't result in anything, except, I guess, this guy's arrest. And he said that... let's see. And also, they said that they got caught stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin last year. Now, I'm interested to hear how they're able to do that, because we know how they were able to compromise all the different high-profile accounts was that they had an independent contractor from within Twitter that had credentials to change people's tweets and have access and send messages as those accounts. So that's how the most recent compromise happened. This one, though, the other one, they managed to steal 164 Bitcoin, which were worth about $856,000 at the time.
Wow.
That's a good chunk of change. Yeah. So, and of course now it would be worth about $1.8 million today. And they said that they received an extortion note signed by Scrim, allegedly one of the online aliases that the hacker uses. So a 16-year-old at the time had sent an extortion note.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And by the way, all this was stolen from Greg Bennett, a Seattle-based tech investor. So spear phishing, finding the right person, loading in the malware and locking it up, and then of course sending the extortion note. So with that being said, in April, the Secret Service seized about 100 Bitcoin from Clark, and weeks later, Bennett received a letter explaining that the Secret Service had recovered 100 of his Bitcoin. The letter cited that the same code assigned to the coin seized from Clark. Long story short, Bitcoin, even though it's like anonymous and used by so many alleged criminals and what have you, it's actually very easy to track individual Bitcoin. So they know for certain that this was his Bitcoin. And less than 2 weeks after the Secret Service seized the 100 Bitcoins from Clark, he began working on the Twitter heist. I have no idea how this kid was able to get 100 Bitcoins seized from the Secret Service. Like, the Secret Service comes knocking on your door, Carissa, and says, hey, you have the stolen goods. And you say, oh, here you go. Here's most of the stolen goods. And then they say, have a nice day. I don't know how this guy was able to keep his phone or his computer.
I think it's magical. Frankly, I don't know how anybody can be mad at that. He's like a child and he's doing this. Bravo. That's incredible.
Well, and hey, and speaking of video games, he got
away with a few of it too. Like, he got to keep some of it. So,
yeah, he got to 64 Bitcoin, which works out to, I want to say, like $200,000 or $300,000. Yeah, that's a pretty good payday. And here we go. Speaking of video games, they say that it appears that Clark got his start as a cyber criminal by duping fellow Minecraft players into buying names or digital capes that he never provided. He's a liar and a thief. Not just a thief, but a liar as well.
Bravo.
What a bad hombre. Well, Chris is going to say bravo. I'm going to say what a bad hombre. Now, his interests... They said that his interest then expanded to Fortnite. This kid is like stereotypical 15, 16, 17-year-old.
What a bunghole.
Yeah. So they said that then expanded to Fortnite, cryptocurrency, and online hacker forums. And by the time Clark was arrested for last month's Twitter hack, he was living on his own in a Tampa apartment, complete with an expensive gaming setup. Of course, you got to buy the best gaming computer. Neighbor said he drove a white BMW 3 Series and appeared on Instagram with items like designer sneakers and a gem-encrusted Rolodex.
Question.
Yes.
Where's his parents?
He was living on his own. I guess he has no need for such trappings as parents. He was living the lavish lifestyle. He was stealing money. He was tricking people online. This is the kind of guy that your mom warns you about. It's horrible to see.
Talk to strangers on the internet. Seriously.
Yeah, and of course, out there, if you're out there and you're on Minecraft and you're trying to buy, particular names or digital capes or Fortnite V-Bucks and things like that, hey, there's a lot of scammers out there, and they'll take advantage of anyone. So it's pretty crazy. That is the profile of someone who did this, and like I said, it really explains that as sophisticated as, well, Carissa, here's a good question for you. How does this make you feel that one of the largest social media platforms, Twitter, was able to be compromised by a 17-year-old who got his start stealing from kids on Fortnite? Like, this isn't the super Russian military ex-personnel, whatever, and, all these different credentials. No, it's just a 17-year-old who just knew how to send messages online.
Well, I'm impressed with his moxie. Nice job. Bad move. Probably shouldn't have done that. It's illegal. Shame on you. But that was impressive. But as for how I feel about the fact that Twitter was hacked, you mentioned that somebody on the back end was able to assist him, right?
Yes, an independent contractor was kind of not targeted, but essentially let them in.
Right. So, it gives me less hope in these companies that have all of your data. But this was also kind of like, a circumstance where, they were let in the back door. Like, it apparently happens once in a while, but
it's really hard to prevent that. And I think that you're absolutely right. This isn't so much Twitter's fault, but it does go to show that a lot of these companies that you assume, they're so big, they're so complex, they must have tons of checks and balances. No, in a lot of cases, they're very reactionary, and I'm sure that they've reacted to this, but just because they're big, just because they're the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, doesn't mean that they're, kind of set up the best way to prevent something like this from happening. So, okay, there's that story. I'm sorry?
I would hope that they would fix that afterwards.
I think that they did. They definitely clamped down on the amount of independent contractors that were able to access users' tweets, because really that was the problem. It's not so much about letting independent contractors work for Twitter. It's about how many people had the ability to send a tweet as Elon Musk. And trust me, you have a hard enough time already trying to decide if Elon Musk was hacked or if it's just Tuesday.
Right.
He's crazy. So they definitely have tried to tighten things up. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Tons of different articles. Let's talk about electric cars real quick. And you know what? Actually, scratch that. We're going to stick with the hacking theme and Nintendo. Carissa, I'm sure that this story was pretty big, but it wasn't as big as I think it should have been. For everyone else out there, if you didn't catch the show last week, I think we talked about this last Tuesday when it happened. Nintendo was hacked, but not just Nintendo. It was a circumstance called GigaLeak. where about 50 of the largest companies, including Disney, Microsoft, Nintendo, a lot of different companies, they had their source code for a number of their projects leaked. A certain individual was able to find repositories online that were unprotected, that were not secured, and posted them into one massive folder. So it wasn't even so much like they were leaked, it was that one person put them into a single repository so that it was easy to find. And that led to GigaLeak. Now, a couple of those things, those poring over the code, have uncovered, Carissa, you might be interested to hear this, a new Animal Crossing villager. That's right, yes. That was scrounged from the source code. And by the way, let's see, what was that? Let's see. So, source code, let's see, Cat 13 in game. So, I think that they're, in the source code, they were working and may one day implement cats as a villager in Animal Crossing.
Great.
Who knew? So small things like that. They also have early prototypes for games like Pokemon Diamond, cut characters from Star Fox. Yeah, very, very cool. A very weird Yoshi, which is probably just like a recolor. Well, actually, it's a very lean-looking Yoshi. I guess more like a traditional raptor. And so you had a lot of different little things coming out like that. And of course, one of them being a Luigi character model from Super Mario 64. Nintendo got like the bulk of the attention because it's video games and people like video games, and it's some of the most storied franchises out there. Now, with that being said, the Internet Archive Project. This is your Wayback Machine that I'm sure a number of you have used to try to see websites from a day ago all the way up to like a year ago, to if you had the inclination, you could go onto the Wayback Machine and check out Computer America the way it first debuted back like I think it had like its first website in like 2001 or like 1998. You could go back almost 20 years and see what computeramerica.com looked like way back in the day. That is the point of the Wayback Machine. So it can archive versions of the internet, because really, when you think about it, it's not like modern history where you kind of write it down in a book. No, these digital archives have to be curated and updated. Now, that leads to the very strange question, which I'm going to pose to you, Carissa. What do you do when you have a leak of all the source code, which is exactly what you preserve? You preserve as much of the code, as much of the relevant original coding as you can, but it's from a source that is unethical. It was leaked unintentionally. It is not leaked by these companies, and a lot of these companies have asked that their content be removed from the services. Now, of course, as the Digital Archive project, you still have a copy of all this. Do you keep it and reserve it, or do you cut it and let it go?
I mean, because I guess it depends on how you're considering these, the leaks and the companies and all of that stuff. Like, if it's obviously it's a piece of history, why, if you're not doing anything with it, why not keep it? Where I'm going with it.
Well, when it comes to the internet, the Digital Archive Project, they have everything from like Flash games, like the original Oregon Trail. I'm sure that you've played that, Chris. I'm sure a lot of people out there have played that way back in the day on their old Microsoft DOS machines. But the Oregon Trail, the original game for that, is available through the Internet Archive Project. They do their best to keep the source code, but not only that, allow them to compile it and run it themselves. Because what's the point of just having random what's the point of just having random lines of code as opposed to fully fledged programs that anyone out there can use and play for future, for future reference? Because think about it, if Nintendo went out of business tomorrow, which we all know that they won't, but if they went out of business tomorrow, they deleted everything, they liquidated the company, all the versions of Pokemon, all the versions of Star Fox, of their consoles, of their gaming systems, all that kind of stuff would just kind of go away because the company would not be there to validate it. So
right.
again, the question is ethically, the companies currently don't want you to keep this, but it is your entire mission statement is to preserve exactly what we're talking about.
I think the preservation is more important than what the companies want. I think that's a piece of history that is important to keep hold of. Sorry, your stuff sucks and you can't keep it under wraps. Like, it's the internet. Get over it.
Boy, that is a hot take. That's too bad that you got hacked, but that's not our problem. But then of course you run into the legal ramifications because the Internet Archive Project is a they are an organization and they can be hacked, they can be sued, and they could lose all the progress that they've since made. So don't get me wrong, I'm with you. I think that a lot of this stuff that in a lot of ways would never have seen the light of day, would have never been public because these companies keep their source code very, very close to them. And even if it's 20 years old, 25 years old, they don't want to get rid of it because one day it might become relevant again. But for everyone out there who grew up on this stuff, you're right. This is a piece of our history that, if Nintendo decided to delete every original source code for Super Mario World, then it would be up to individuals to have to do their best to try to recreate it from scratch, which would be almost impossible. So,
right. I have another question about that, though. Like, for example, copyrights. Obviously, this goes into all the legalities of acquiring this data and all of that. But what exactly is it? Like an umbrella copyright? Are these only tiny pieces of code that you have to piece together, and are those under the copyright? Like, what is the legality of having, let's say, if it is just a small piece of code that might not be, like, what if there's a loophole?
Well, what was leaked was the source code, and the source code means that you could put it into a compiler and anyone could recreate the entirety of the program themselves, and it's not hard to compile or edit the code. And then of course you have things like recently the Counter-Strike Global Offensive 1.6, what the source code for that from Steam was leaked, and you have instances of that where the game is still being played by many people to this day, and hackers were able to get into the source code and find ways to cheat the system, see how it detects cheaters, to create different kinds of exploits by seeing how it was coded. Source code is valuable for a number of reasons, and not just for kind of copyright reasons. When it comes to copyright, though, it depends country by country, and in the U.S., essentially that legal fight would have to happen in every country across the globe, which is something that very, very, very few companies even bother doing. So it's probably legal somewhere. I mean, it's like you said, it's the internet. Too bad. It's legal somewhere, but it's not legal in most places. I guess would be my answer to that question. Now, let's go to the very bottom of this article, again from The Verge, and read one quick quote, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But let's just say, quote, "In a perfect world, this leak will encourage Nintendo to be more open about their developmental history, to partner with preservationists and archivists to allow the public a means to explore all those lovely what could have beens," said Brian. "How great would it be if Nintendo themselves freely distributed those mythical Mario 64 Luigi assets, or Super Donkey, the primordial, highly experimental Yoshi's Island precursor? But in my heart of hearts, I know there will be consequences. I foresee Nintendo being less open about what goes on behind the scenes." So that gentleman there is much on your side, Corissa. He's saying that, in a perfect world, yeah, Nintendo would share everything, especially after it stops making money, especially for projects that are no longer under development, for consoles that are no longer being sold, for games that are no longer being played. What if they could just share it all? But that's not what happens.
Right.
I'm with you though. I really do wish, and this is a topic on our Linux programs that we have here on the program, where you have these things called, I completely forgot the name. In Linux, it's idea where a certain project they stop development on a project, and then the community picks it up and tries to revive it and continues to operate on it. They continue to give it updates, security updates, things like that. And the community curates the program. That is something I'd like to see more in programming, especially for these popular video games. What if Super Mario World were released to the public and anyone could go out there and contribute to the code, tweak the code, change the code, and you had 1,000 different versions of Super Mario World that all worked just like the original.
That sounds like a dream, though, because and then you'll have too many good games because there's too many people feeding everything into it like you need. And then they wouldn't make as much money because then you could just acquire these games and their modded versions, whatever it is, anywhere you want to, and then they wouldn't.
But that's the thing, and you're right about modern games. But what if you set it to 20 years? What if you set it to 25 years? There's a certain point to which you're just protecting something that you think is valuable, as opposed to kind of
right.
It's been done like that for 20, for 2 decades, 3 decades. Why change it? And maybe it should be changed. These are all philosophical questions to a tech industry that has no reason to change. So, we can ask the questions all we want, Corissa. I don't think that people are going to be all that open to changing, but it's something that I would like to see, because so many pieces of technology, and especially when it comes to software, so much software is rendered useless and just unavailable to people out there, which is why projects like the Internet Archive Project are so important, because it's a way to kind of categorize things that are very, fleeting. So there you go.
Excellent.
Interesting topic. I love talking about that kind of thing, but we're going to go ahead and switch on over. Let's get a quick update, and I don't want to get into this too much, but last week Garmin was in a world of hurt, and I should say it started on Friday. It started on Friday, lasted over the weekend. I last got an update about this on Tuesday, where they said some services were getting back up to date. A ransomware attack had hit the Garmin services network, where things like tracking calories and being able to input the different kinds of information. They said so far that customer transaction, customer data, it's all okay. None of it was stolen, but the services that Garmin products use did cause an outage. Turns out they have a Russian-based group called Evil Corp. They were the ones who were hacking Garmin. And it looks like, according to this article from Engadget, that Garmin has paid multi-million-dollar ransom via a third-party company called Ars Incident Response to regain access to its files and systems. And they have, Engadget has contacted for comment. They have not commented, but yeah, they said that they haven't revealed who was behind the attack or who was paid, but I think at this point we are pretty sure that the ransomware was called Wasted Locker and the company was called Evil Corp. And they, of course, did all this. So
that's a serious corporation name right there.
Evil Corp. I know. You'd think that'd be something out of like a Miyazaki, movie, or just a very generic video game villain. It's Evil Corp, of course. How could they be evil?
Right.
Exactly. So, yep, they have paid their ransom, and it's just another example that we can throw onto the pile where, hey, Garmin, we say back up your data all the time. Back up. Have backups, make backups. Be sure to be able to implement the backups, even though we say it all the time and it should be common practice. Things like this still happen, and yeah, millions of dollars later, I'm sure that Garmin wish they had. So there you go. Okay. I'm sorry?
I said, oh no.
Oh no, indeed. I'm sure that is exactly what they said when all their systems were flashing red, and they're like, oh no. And, multi-million dollars later. And really, Corissa, that's really what happened behind the scenes. I recall the story when I first heard it. They had they had system engineers picking up the phone, and I'm sure they were like old rotary phones. Like in my head, they were like the old rotary phones, and they were picking up the phones and they were dialing as fast as they can, and they were like, shut off your computer, shut off your computer. And at one point, they were just having all the employees run around their headquarters, yanking the power cords on all of their computers so that they wouldn't be infected with the malware. And too little, too late. It still compromised a majority of their network. So, no fun. No fun indeed. Now, with that being said, Corissa, you mentioned that you had an Android phone. You may be interested in this because, ladies and gentlemen, you may not know this about Corissa, but I recall she was one of the few, and by few I mean only, and I know a lot of people, and I talk about a lot of phones, that actually enjoyed Windows phones.
Oh, Lordy.
I had no idea. I had no idea that people like you existed, Corissa, but yeah, it threw me for a loop. Your beloved Windows Phone and Windows operating system died, and died very, very quietly. But with that being said, because you're using Android, you may be interested in a phone that is not the most flagship, but it is a real competitor in the mid-range market. What is your experience, Corissa, with the Google Pixel line of phones? Have you ever had one?
I haven't ever had one, but I have friends who've had them, and they were very impressed with them. I know that there was one a little bit time ago that would explode when you got onto an airplane.
See, but that's all phones. That is the lithium-ion battery, and I think was that the Google phone, or are you thinking of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7?
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're thinking of the Samsung Galaxy Note, but I will say that lithium batteries in general, that is why you cannot ship phones in airplanes, is because they catch on fire all the time. So that's not an uncommon story. But I digress. The whole point for me asking you these lines of questions is that, well, Google has announced its latest phone, the Google Pixel 4. And you may be saying, but wait, Ben, the Google Pixel 4 is already out. I lied. The Google Pixel 4a is the phone. It's a bit cheaper. Yeah, I know. It's a bit cheaper. It's a bit better. There will be the Pixel. Let's see. I believe so far we have a confirmation of the 4A. There will probably be a 4A XL. According to this article, there were already a few leaks of what that will have, and they say that, well, what is why is this big news? Because hey, it's just another kind of mid-range phone that's going to be kind of middle of the road specs. 5G. And Corissa, 5G is a very loaded term lately. Boy, what is your experience with 5G? Like have you heard any of the craziness that's been going on with the rumors?
I have. I try not to listen to it too much because it's ridiculous. But I hear rumors, and
they really are. Yeah,
it's impressively ridiculous. What is it? It gives you cancer or something like that?
5G, everything from it causes coronavirus, which has been the latest one, weakening the immune system because, of course, we're all magnetic beings, and therefore 5G, being an electrical signal, is interfering with our body's immune system, thereby weakening it. You can, of course, blame 5G for mind control. You can blame 5G for cancer, like you said. You can blame 5G for really just about anything. There were 5G towers that were being burned down, but of course the problem is that a lot of those were unfortunately just your basic 3G, 4G cell towers that have been in operation for years and years and years. The point is 5G, it's the new buzzword. Here it is in a good context. Most 5G phones that we hear about are from Samsung and, of course, Apple. Their latest iPhone, they have confirmed that the next generation of iPhone will have 5G. This current generation of Samsung phones has 5G as well. Actually, getting a 5G network, that might take longer than you getting a 5G compatible phone. But with all that being said, this is the cheapest that we've seen it, where the Apple phone, I think, starts at like $1,000. The Samsung phone starts at about $1,000, maybe $900. This one, though, you're looking at, well, I think about $400 is what the iPhone 4A is trying to hit. And the Google Pixel 4A will have 5G capabilities. Not bad.
Well, yeah, it's not bad. And I mean, if all you get are those side effects, I mean, sign me up, you know?
There will be no side effects. I've been over this. So, and by the way, actually, a little bit of a correction on my end. The Pixel 4a 5G, the company that they're working on, will likely cost about $499. I misread the article a bit. I think that they will have a non-5G compatible version that will be $399, so about $400. So you're looking about $500. Snapdragon 765, so that's a pretty common processor when it comes to smartphones. Nothing too crazy when it comes to specs, but it's a decent phone made by Google, so it's going to have regular updates and it will be 5G compatible. It's I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to see 5G phones becoming a thing. I do want to warn everyone that unless you live in like downtown San Francisco, downtown New York, or one of these huge metropolitan areas, you probably won't have 5G anytime soon. So prioritizing it is not something you want to do with your next phone purchase. But at $500, that's not the most expensive phone on the market. It's pretty darn good.
Also do too, so that way they can test the towers and stuff and make sure it all works properly. So you got to start somewhere too.
They have to start somewhere, and in some of those tests that you were just mentioning, Corissa, are, the one that I bring up most often are stadiums. They're talking, and this is why the 5G rumors are so egregious. 5G can't even cover, like a single 5G tower can't even cover an entire stadium. And don't get me wrong, stadiums are huge. They are massive for sporting events, especially when there's no one in them because of coronavirus. But they're massive. A single 5G antenna cannot cover the entire thing. So either they have 5G access kind of at the entrance where people kind of congregate and have to wait to get into the stadium and that kind of thing, or they have to put up multiple towers, which of course adds to the cost of installing 5G. It's gonna take a couple years at least, and if you want to future-proof yourself or you live in one of these areas, perfect. If not, don't prioritize it. Just get the best phone that you possibly can. Is there any line of phone, Corissa, just for my personal memory? I'll add it to my to my impressive, comprehensive list of phones that I know. What line of phones are your favorite?
I like the Samsungs personally. I don't have a Samsung right now. But Samsungs are fine. I also like what Motorola's been doing. They've put out some newer phones, and they're really great quality.
I've not checked them out.
Motorola. I had a copy of the Motorola, I think it was the G7 Power. So it had a large battery in it, and it was a nice big phone, and the camera was fast and crisp, and it was really great. So I was really surprised to see that, because the Motorolas I remember are like the Razr. Yeah. That was the last time I had a Motorola phone. So it's nice that they're upgrading and keeping up with the times and stuff.
They did re-release the Razr. I'm surprised you didn't jump on that $2,000 Razr phone.
No thanks. Was it the slider one?
It slid kind of like up and down, like not like the traditional Razr where you kind of like had it on the side and it slid up to reveal the full keyboard, but it slid like up like a BlackBerry, I guess, kind of.
Oh no, that's not nice.
But, they were trying to capitalize on nostalgia, and it was stylish. I think it was one of the better looking. Oh, and actually, they did have a flip phone version with a bendable screen. I think that was the $2,000 one. So it was like a flip phone, but it flipped up, and it had a full-fledged touch screen kind of deal. The point is, it was $2,000, and it was not a big seller. Big shock.
Yeah.
So... Okay, Corissa, we have like less than a minute. I sent you a list of topics. If people want to find out more about any one of these, which one that we didn't cover caught your attention? And we're not going to be able to cover it now, but which of these articles, do you think people should know about?
The SpaceX, for sure.
SpaceX and their Starlink, which, by the way, as I understand it, Starlink is looking to become its own company as time progresses, but Starlink is the network of satellites that SpaceX is launching to give everyone internet everywhere. You're right, that's a very interesting story, where the FCC has licensed 700,000 people who want the internet, and, well, they're going to launch 5 million satellites from Earth into orbit, and that's up from about 1 million. So, Carissa, could you imagine 5 million satellites all in orbit together, all in a mesh network?
They're going to ruin the view of the stars, is my thought. You're going to see these massive blobs floating through space. It's right next to your star view, and it's going to be very sad.
So,
but I like the idea of having internet in space.
To assuage anyone out there who has the same thought, don't worry. They have thought about that. The only pictures that we have of Starlink are these kind of constellation-like images, and it's because the solar panels are misaligned. They're pointed kind of towards the Earth. When everything is said and done, when the solar panels are aligned properly, you will not be able to see any of the Starlinks in the sky. So just want to put Carissa, put your fear to rest, put everyone else's fear to rest. Elon Musk is not going to take away the sky as much as he'd like to, I'm sure. So Carissa, that was your first show, and I want to thank you so much for being here, and I hope that it was fun. I know that I talked a lot, but I want to thank you for your input, and thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And you should be here tomorrow. And by should be, I mean I know that you will be, and I'm looking forward to it. So, Carissa, until next time, and everyone else out there, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. If you like us, check us out, computeramerica.com. You can see a lot of, just really a lot of what we do. Articles, reviews, podcasts, show notes, video archives, all that and more. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. And everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.